When my friends found out that I was already working online or I was working from home, they asked whether it would be sustainable or not. Like, how would it compare to having a stable job in an actual office or when you're actually employed by a company or an employer? That was a very important question to ask because, as I've said in my previous video, working from home or online is not for everyone. You must have a proper preparation or planning for it to be able to sustain you financially, and not just you but also your family. So if you're interested in hearing what I have to say about that, I'm also going to tell you the advantages and disadvantages of working from home. So keep on watching. So to help you have an informed decision or decisions about whether or not you should jump to working from home, then listen up because I'm going to discuss the pros and the cons of working from home. The first advantage that I think is really important, especially when you work away from the office, like an hour or so away, is that obviously there would be no more terrible traffic. And if you've watched my very first video about work from home series, you will know that traffic is really one of the biggest factors that led me to working from home. So if you're working far away from the office and you are just commuting and there's obviously terrible traffic, working from home is a no-brainer. It's really one of the best things that you can do in your whole career. The second advantage is that you no longer need to spend for office clothes. That's also one of the things that I really love because back in the call center, obviously I was working as a trainer, so I needed to dress up. I also needed to buy clothes from time to time just to build up my wardrobe. I did not buy a lot of clothes, but still a part of your salary will go to buying decent clothes that you can wear to work. But when you're working from home, you can just be in your pajamas, in a shirt like this, and anything that you're comfortable wearing, and voila, you can still be paid for that. Except of course, if you are working as a tutor and you need to be on cam speaking with a student or anyone, but at least even though you need to wear something formal on top, you can still wear pajamas because only half of your body will be seen on video cam. So that's a very interesting thing to do. I feel that that's really one of the perks. The number 3 advantage that I'd like to point out is that there will be no more risks of being out in the dead of the night when you're working in the office, especially BPO or call center. There were a lot of times when I had to go to work at 12 midnight, 1 a.m. Name it, and I had experienced it. I had even experienced waiting for a cab at a very dark part of the road while I was pregnant at 12 midnight. So that's kind of a risk. And if you're asking why I was there at 12 midnight while I was pregnant, I don't know. It just happened. Although call centers pay night differential and hazard pay, any amount is never worth your life. So you're risking yourself out there in the middle of the night, and even if you're paid for it, it's still not going to be enough if something bad happens to you. So just a reminder, if you're working the night shift or graveyard shift, take the extra precautions. I think it's like common sense, but we really can't help it. There are a lot of criminal minds nowadays, and I don't know what the world is going to be, but I really hope that you take the safety precautions just so to keep yourself safe at all times. Number 4 is flexible time. You will have more control over your time, more than when you are working in an office or in an actual call center. So just to tell you what my setup is right now, I started with having a full-time job. I still have a full-time job right now. I worked from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. That was the original time that my client asked me to work. He said to me that he would be fine if I wanted a different schedule. I just have to tell him. I was also very lucky to have a very considerate employer or boss, and that's also one thing that maybe you should look for when you're applying for an online job. So what happened was that from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. I felt like I was still working in an actual call center because of the graveyard nature. So I asked my client if I could move my schedule to an earlier time. So I was able to move it that way, and then eventually when he was already confident with my ethics, with the way I work, and because I would always show up for work on time, then he was already confident with my performance. So eventually I also got more confident with asking for a different time until it came to a point wherein I did not have to work at a specific period of time anymore. So he just required me to have the full-time job, which means 40 hours per week, which is actually already good. I'm still doing that now, although there are weeks wherein I work less than 40 hours, and it would depend on the time that I spend working. Of course, my salary depends on how many hours I worked. I think that it's really a good setup for me right now because in the very beginning, I wanted to have a stable income, being that I am a breadwinner and I have a family to support. The flexible time also allowed me to go to different events that I want to go to. If I had appointments, I just have to ask my boss if I can work at this time, and sometimes I don't even have to tell him. I just have to show up for work and finish all my tasks for the day, and I should be good. I have more freedom, I have more control over my time, especially when I'm traveling. And the next thing is you will have more time for your family. Before, I would usually rush to go to work. I'd have to wake up early just to get to work on time, or even earlier than expected to beat the traffic and all that. But now that I'm working from home, I'll have more time for my family. Everything that I need to be as a mother, as a wife, also as the mayordoma of our family and everything like that. I think this is one of the best things ever, especially if you have a family, if you're a mom or if you're a dad. Spending time with your kids is a very important thing, obviously because they are growing up so fast, and it's important that we're always there for them. And I'm not discounting the fact that moms choose to work in an office because, as I said, it's a matter of choice and circumstance. So just because you're working in an office or you're working from home doesn't make you less of a mom or a dad. You know, it really depends on your situation. But I'm just saying that working from home is a big advantage if you have kids or if you have a family of your own. This brings us to the next advantage, which is you can practically work anywhere you like. So just because we say we're working from home, you are free to choose your work location, but it also depends on the type of work that you do. Obviously, when you are supposed to take calls at home, like it's a call center setup, which is also possible, you are supposed to stay home because you have the dial-up or internet connection right there, and you need to have the right environment to take calls. But if you're like me, I actually chose to have a non-voice type of work, so I don't really get to take calls. My scope of work is writing content, creating content for blogs, websites, email newsletters, social media, Amazon email customer service, video editing or video making. All those things do not need me to make calls or take calls. I especially wanted it to be that way so that I can work from anywhere. I can work whenever I'm traveling, I can work when I'm in my hometown, even work in an internet cafe as long as there is an internet connection, so that I can have the freedom of location that I really want. Next thing, and I think that it's an advantage personally, because you will have no boss walking around. If you're like me, I am not very comfortable with someone hovering over my back and watching every step or every single thing that I do whenever I'm working. I get so distracted and I get very annoyed. Sometimes, you know, micromanaging can really affect the way your employees work. I'm the type of person who works best when you just let me do my own thing, and then I'll ask you if I have questions. So if you're like me, then work from home is really for you. And the last thing that I can think of for now is that the pay or the salary is actually comparable to what you will receive when you're in an office. And that's what also sold me to the job, because to be quite honest, my salary when I was still in training in that BPO industry was not that big. When I found out that I can earn so much more while just working from home. I mean, what else could have I asked for? It has everything that I needed for a job. Now, the disadvantages are, number one, you will be too comfortable in your house. Obviously, because you're just in your house and you're not in a proper workplace environment, sometimes you will feel like you need to sleep or you're so sleepy, and you will give in to that temptation. But the good thing about that is, if you're in a flexible time, relating to the advantage that we mentioned earlier, you can actually sleep whenever you feel like you need to sleep, because taking a break is a must. So that's what I do personally. If in the middle of my work I feel like I'm very sleepy and it's already affecting the work that I do, like I couldn't type anymore, or I would type a few sentences but then it won't make sense when I read it, I'll just have to give it up and tell myself I just need to take a nap for an hour and I'd be good to go after that. So that's also pretty much an advantage, right? But then again, you just have to make sure that you set a certain time frame for yourself and really have to be motivated and disciplined, especially that you're already working from home. Two is something that we cannot control, which is slow internet connection. As you know, here in the Philippines, we don't have the best internet connection. We probably have the worst internet connection, but what can we do? We are mere peasants and beggars of the internet connection, sadly. And even though we have unlimited internet, I currently have unlimited internet up to 15 Mbps. Well, unlimited in a sense that it doesn't cap, but the speed is up to 15 Mbps. It can sometimes still get slow at some points, especially when it's raining, and it's something that we cannot control, which is also why I prefer to have a non-voice job, because when you have a voice kind of job, like you're taking calls or you're working for an English tutorial company, you'd really have to have a strong internet connection. Number three is environmental noise or external noise. Especially when you are taking calls at home, you have to make sure that you have a location, a spot, or even a home office that is soundproof, so that you can take calls professionally and your client or your customer will not hear the cuckoos of the chickens, the dogs, and everything. So what I can suggest is to really plan for it. If you plan to work from home and take calls from home, you really have to allot a certain space where you can take calls without being distracted. Otherwise, you'd have to start with non-voice jobs. It pays really well even though it's non-voice. So you just have to find the right fit based on your situation. The next disadvantage is that you will work on paying your own benefits. You'll work on having your own health insurance or life insurance. Especially if your client or your employer is abroad, they will not do the work for you. They will not pay for your benefits. No SSS, no pag-ibig, PhilHealth, or whatever. Whereas when you work in an office, those benefits are going to be automatically deducted from your pay, including the taxes. So when you start working from home, you also have to think about that. Benefits, okay, what kind of benefits do you get from your corporate job? Would it be worth it to give it up or something like that? Would it be worth it to give up the benefits that you're getting? Or would it just be fine if you give up the benefits and just pay on your own? So that's what I do now. I pay my own taxes. I'm registered as a freelance content creator. If you want to know how I registered as a freelance content creator and paid my own taxes, I pay my own taxes every single quarter. Comment below, I am going to make a video about that. The next thing is something that you really have to think about. Sometimes your pay will be somehow unstable, in a sense that if you don't have a job like mine, like I basically have a full-time job with a certain client so that I could have a stable income every single month. But depending on your arrangement or your setup with a client, you might be paid monthly or per project basis. It depends. So when that happens, there will be times when you will not be paid on time. And so it is very important to make that arrangement properly with your client or with your boss to avoid those things from happening. Some clients do not pay on time, and that's really a sad thing, which is why I suggest you'd want to start with having something long-term, something or an employer that can hire you for long-term. Like there's an arrangement that you will be paid every single month, and that would be stated in a contract. There are also some clients who will pay you peanuts. So it's also very important to look at the rate. Is it something that is worth accepting? Is the salary something that can compensate the type of job or the tasks that you will be doing? Also have to take a look at that. The next disadvantage is probably a lot more distractions, obviously because you're working from home, so sometimes you may have family members, friends, maybe your kids will go to you and ask you something, request for something. You cannot avoid those things. So what you need to do is to set an expectation with everyone that you're working at this time. You're gonna have to be at your desk at this time, sleep at this time, and you will be available to be distracted and interrupted at this time when you have your breaks or your lunches. And last disadvantage that I can think of is employers are usually looking for people with experience. So if you're a call center agent now and you have an experience, you already have the skills to start working from home. The reason for this is that since we are working online, employers do not really want to spend a lot more time training people who don't have experience or who are just starting, because they would want you to start right away, or it would be very costly and time-consuming to do trainings online versus, really teaching you face-to-face or one-on-one. But I'm not saying that you don't have a chance if you're a beginner. Even if you're a beginner, even if you're just new to the work-from-home industry, you can still definitely get a job. But it's just that there's some employers who would want to hire people who already have experience. So at this point, if you're watching this video and you're just starting to work in a call center industry, then that's good, so that you'll be able to build your experience as well, and when the time comes, you'll be more confident to start working from home. So the question is it sustainable? Yes, it is definitely sustainable to work from home or online. You just have to find the right company. It's a matter of trial and error. Sometimes you'll fail, sometimes you'll get there, but definitely it's worth it. So if you're thinking of working from home as well and you're looking for jobs that will fit you, then comment below what your questions are, because on my next videos I'm going to address them. So I hope you learned something from this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on my next. Bye!